The audacity of non-Singaporeans to foreign-splain my own government to me, I swear! If you're not from Singapore and you're watching this is gonna sound like a humble brag, for sure. Especially the last point, but stay with me, I have questions for you. So I was on a call with my friends from NYC and the topic of property prices came up because we're all around the age where we're ready to buy our first homes, you know? Yes, I'm finally trying to buy a home in Singapore. So obvi as a Singaporean, I said, oh my gosh, Singaporean property is so expensive. If I said HDB, they won't understand, right? And I thought I was gonna win this argument until one of them said, doesn't your government subsidize housing for its people? And don't you guys have something crazy like 90% home ownership or something? To which I said, well, yeah, but they're 99-year leases, so technically you don't even own it. Confirm win, like we're just renting, right? Plot twist. Now I know that Singapore has like an impeccable reputation and everything, so I'm not surprised that this is what they said, right? But then my ADHD brain and I were like, technically we own it, right? And so I did some research. And I learned that while it may seem like a lease, you actually own these apartments for 99 years. And that means Singaporeans can actually do anything that an owner can do, like rent it or sell it, things that you cannot actually do if you are leasing or renting an apartment. And I would know because I've been doing it since I was 22. Imagine renting someone's apartment and then say, I'm gonna sell this. You just can't. Anyway, side note, my friend likens this to social housing in the Netherlands. I didn't know that other countries did this too, but it was nice to know, I guess. So if you're from the Netherlands, let me know how you feel about social housing. Because I read that your taxes are also pretty insane. That if you make over 74k euros, which is about 105,000 per year in Singapore, your tax is something like 50%. So even in this aspect, I feel really entitled for like complaining. Do you know what I mean? And here's where the humble brag or the flex comes in. Don't hate me, please, sorry. So in Singapore, if you're buying property for the first time, there are many government grants you can tap into. For example, first-time home buyers are offered up to 80k in subsidies for built-to-order or resale flats. And because of our family values here, to encourage living closer to our aging parents, there is also a proximity grant. Hey, Singaporeans, live closer to your parents, will subsidize up to this amount. And these government-subsidized 99-year HDBs are maintained by town councils to keep the common areas clean, safe, and functional, with scheduled estate improvements and community building events. But wait, there's more! In the process, I've also found myself in the deep dive as to why our property prices have increased so significantly in the last few years. And this is not isolated to us, right? Because the pandemic delayed construction, leading to supply shortages and intense competition for existing units. But what did our government do? They ramped up BTO supply to meet demand and implemented cooling measures like raising the ABSD from 20% to 30%, and more recently to a whopping 60%, just to deter foreigners from buying our property as investments. I mean, talk about protecting your turf. And here's the flex-worthy humble brag that I warned you about. I was speaking to my sister-in-law, Amanda, as to when she was gonna get the keys to her first apartment, and the best way to explain it is this. Singapore has a 401k on a governmental level that we call CPF. Kind of like forced savings, but you know what? That thing accumulates. Because of it, about 80% of Singaporeans are able to use some of it to finance their apartments entirely, which means some of us don't even need to touch our personal savings. I'm humbled, you know, and a little bit ashamed that sometimes it takes a foreigner's perspective to remind us that while nothing is perfect, we've got it pretty good, Singaporeans. Sorry, not bragging, but a little bit.